Hello, Abby the Labby and I are out on the porch, a little rainy afternoon, and I wanted to talk to you for just a second, okay? And I'm gonna sit down for this one because this might take me a minute. So, a lot of people ask why I got started in real estate investing, and I want to tell y'all that I had a job. I was trucking with my family. My family's always been trucking. They've always been in real estate investing, and after I graduated college, that's what I thought I should do. There, it's a little bit better. So after I graduated college, I thought I should go truck with the family. And it was fun, except during the recession when it wasn't fun. And a lot of what helped us keep going during the recession was our rental income. So after the recession was over and things were starting to pick up and whatnot, I decided I needed to get in real estate also. So I bought some land. I paid $1,500 for a piece of land in the city of Knoxville, and I started renting the driveway for $250. Awesome, right? So I did a couple more land deals, and I thought, you know what? I'm ready to do some houses. So I took my entire life savings and bought a house and started renting it. I didn't have any plans. I didn't have any formulas. I didn't have any strategy. I was just throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something would stick. I rented the house and I had money coming in, but it wasn't a lot of money. I think I rented it for like $700, $750 a month, and it was going to take forever to get all of my money back. But I found another house I wanted to buy. So I called my brother and said, hey, I need a partner. I need some money. Let's go buy this house and flip it. And he was like, all right. When we left the closing from buying that house, the seller went to shake my hand and he laughed in my face and told me that he was glad I got the house because nobody else in town had offered him nearly as much money. And when he said that, I thought, oh gosh, I've gotten myself into some trouble. And I did. It turned out to be a bad deal. Took like a year and a half to flip it because we'd spent all of our money buying it and we didn't have any money to flip it. So we took all the money that we had and started working on flipping that house, and I was completely out of money. And I ended up at a REIA meeting with real estate investors who were also trying to figure out how to get into investing, how to do these deals. Everybody was really confused, and it was a room full of lot of nervous energy, you could say, because nobody wanted to buy a deal, nobody wanted to get stuck with a bad deal, nobody wanted to take on a bad deal, but we all wanted to get started in real estate investing. So they had a special presentation one night, and it was $75 for this special workshop that they were having. And I talked to the president, Victor, afterwards, and I was like, hey, I really want to go to this workshop, but I don't have $75. I've just spent every last penny I have flipping these houses. And he was like, you're gonna love this workshop, Whitney. Like, I really want you to be at this workshop. So if you'll pay $75 and come to the workshop, if you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. And I was like, all right, old man, I guess I'll see you at the workshop. So I went, and within 15 minutes, I was amazed. There was a gentleman there named Bruce Barrett. He still does lease options in Knoxville. He does them in Oak Ridge. And I do lease options in East Knoxville now. But Bruce was talking about how he was making money, how he was buying houses. He was putting none of his own money into it. He was putting no time into it. He was not flipping it. And everything that I'd had a problem with on these other two houses that I bought, he was smashing my fears left and right. He was, absolutely blowing my mind. And so within 15 minutes of being there, I was hooked. I knew I had to know more about lease options, and at some point in the presentation, Bruce mentioned Ron LeGrand. And so I called him the next day, and I was like, hey, who's this Ron LeGrand person? I need to know more about lease options. And Bruce was like, absolutely, go see Ron in Florida next month. And this had been in November, and so the first boot camp was in December. And if you don't care, I'm going to tell you a little funny side note about that. So it was a 2-night workshop in Knoxville on lease options. And I went to the first one, but I told Victor that I could not go to the second one. No matter how amazing this workshop was, I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to the second one because I was going to Boston. My boyfriend was taking me to Boston for my birthday, and I just knew he was going to propose. So I went to the first night of lease option school. I called Bruce the next day and said, hey, I need to know more about Ron LeGrand. And after I got off the phone with Bruce, I found Ron LeGrand online and booked for the workshop in December. And the next week, Jason and I went to Boston for my birthday. And he did not propose that weekend. So, like any brat who's expecting to be proposed to on her birthday weekend on a romantic trip to Boston, I got drunk and told him that I wish I'd not gone on this trip because I could have stayed and gone to lease option workshops in Knoxville. And that was the beginning of a slippery slope. So anyway, we got back. I was mad. He didn't know I was mad. I didn't want to tell him that I expected him to propose while we were there because I thought he'd call me crazy because I used to care about him calling me crazy. But anyway, the next month I hauled tail down to Florida because Jason thought I was crazy for wanting to go to this workshop. He thought I was signing up for some MLM and I was going to pay a bunch of money and nobody was going to teach me anything and I was going to end up being, you know, broke, busted, and disgusted, even worse than I was. And he told me while I was there at the boot camp in Florida in December, I called him and I was really excited because I was going to make this happen and I'd learned all these things and it was going to be amazing. And he told me that it wouldn't work. He told me that I'd never find anybody in Knoxville to do these deals with me. He told me that I needed to basically give it up and come on home and go back to trucking, go back to what I knew was going to bring in some money and quit lollygagging and dreaming about all this real estate stuff. And at that moment, I probably should have broken up with him after he hadn't proposed the month before and after he basically told me I was a loser and busted my bubble, busted my dreams, was not the supportive boyfriend that I wanted or probably needed at the time. But instead of breaking up with him, I just got really mad at him and I decided that the best revenge was success. So I got it in my head that come hell or high water, I was going to go home and I was going to make this lease option thing work and I was going to shove it in his face every day. Because that's the kind of girl I am. I'm classy like that, y'all. Okay? So I did. I came home and I busted my butt and I talked to every seller I could find. I talked to everybody who might kind of sort of know a seller that I needed to talk to. And in January, I got nowhere really fast and I was really frustrated. So I decided to go back and see Ron LeGrand in Florida in February again. I actually signed up and went for 2 weekends in a row. He was having a bunch of different workshops and I wanted to know everything I could about this lease options. And I could see that I was talking to sellers and I wasn't getting very far. So there was something that I was missing here. So I decided to go back to Florida and find what I was missing. And when I was there, I got a mentor. I plopped another $15,000 down and got a mentor. Because I decided that that's what I needed so that I had somebody to talk to when I got home. So that when I had questions or when a situation came up, I would have somebody that I could depend on and I could say, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Hey, what about this? Hey, they said this, they said that, they wanted to do this, can I do that? I needed somebody like that. Otherwise, I was going to spend this money and get really excited and not do anything. And I didn't want to. I was determined to make it work. I knew if Bruce could do it in Oak Ridge, then there was no reason I couldn't get it to work in Jefferson City. But I was going to need some help. So I got a mentor. And I got back home on Valentine's Day of 2014. And on February 28th, I was sitting in a seller's kitchen. They had put a house up on Zillow that morning, and I'd called them, and I went over and talked to them that evening. I was there for like an hour and a half. I explained everything that I knew about lease options. It took entirely too long, but they signed my contract. They were living in the house. They moved out the next week, and after they moved out, I started marketing the property. So one of the conditions is the day that I got it under contract, the day that they put it up on Zillow, I told them they had to take it back off Zillow, and I was going to put it back up on Zillow myself. And I raised the price. Okay, they had it up for $135, and when I put it back up, I put it up for $145, but I bought it for $122, which is what they owed on it. And their payments were $800 a month, and I told them it would take me 3 months before I could make the first payment, but that, so that was, I got it February 28th. They were going to make the payment for March, April, May. I was going to be on the hook to make June's payment, okay? So the fourth payment was in June, and I was going to be on the hook to make it. And these people had bought this house like less than a year before as their retirement house. And then their daughter had come home and she was pregnant. And they had to go. They were under a serious time crunch because this house wasn't big enough for 4 people. And they had to go. So they agreed to everything that I was telling them. I was going to start making the payment starting in June. They gave me, I think they probably gave me 2 or 3 years to pay them off. And that was fine with me because they were signing my contract, and I was tickled pink that somebody was signing my contract. So I got that signed on February 28th. They moved out by like March the 7th. Like it was the first week of March. Like it was pretty much a week to the day from me getting the contract to them being out of the house. And they found a rental house to move to that was big enough for them and their daughter and the baby. So they did that, and I put it back up on Zillow for $145 as soon as it was empty, and I could go take some pictures of it. I went and put a lockbox on it. I put a sign in the front yard. I put a bunch of signs up around town. I learned that I was not allowed to put signs up around town because the city of Dandridge doesn't allow that. So I had to go get them before they wrote me a ticket. But I could put them in Jefferson County, leading people to Dandridge to go see the house. I started advertising it on Craigslist every day. I had it on Zillow. I had it on my website, which was pathetic at the time. And I was so excited because in December, when I'd been at the first boot camp with Ron, I'd put a post on Facebook that said, I'm going to buy 10 houses in 2014. And everybody said, yeah, right, you can't do that. That's not possible, blah, 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 blah. And here I was in March, and I'd already got 1 house under contract. So I blasted Facebook with, I bought a house. I bought my first house. Only 9 more to go. Woohoo! All right, so I put this thing everywhere that I knew at the time to put it. And within a couple days, like probably that first weekend that I had it up, Abby Labby's back. She's been out prowling in the rain. You're a wet dog. Don't bother me. So that first weekend, I had it up on Zillow for $145 on this, rent to own lease option situation, lease purchase situation. And a couple called me out of Chicago, and they'd seen the house the year prior to my sellers buying it. And they liked it then, but they weren't able to get it. And they saw, the day my sellers put the house back up on Zillow for $135, they saw it up there for $135. But they didn't call, they had work, they had, whatever, they didn't get it in time. So I did, and I had it out at $145, but I bought it for $122, making the first payment in June. And they said, what happened to it at $135? Can we still have it for $135? And I said, okay, yeah, that's $13,000. That's fine. I mean, if you'll take it for $135, you saw it at $135. All right, fine. I'll let you have it for $135. Trying to have story time here, Abby. So, Abby, don't squeak that for a second, okay? Just let me finish. So the people from Chicago came down to Dandridge the next week to look at the house to make sure that it was still in the same condition. And actually they said it was in better condition than when they'd seen it the year before. And they definitely wanted it for $135. The thing was, They couldn't cash me out at 135 until their house in Chicago sold. Well, that's no problem with me. I'll let you rent it until that house sells. And they were like, perfect. How much can we rent it for? And I said, $1,000 a month. My payment was going to be $800 a month. I said, $1,000 a month. You can rent it. And they were like, okay. They gave me $3,000 that day, $1,000 to go towards the option fee, and they paid 2 months rent in advance. So they paid April and May, because we're like on into March at this point. They paid for April and May's rent of $1,000. I didn't have a payment due until June, and they told me that whenever their house in Chicago sold, they would cash me out for $135. So we were going to do it for a year because I didn't know the Chicago market. I didn't know how fast it would sell. I didn't know. So we went for a year. They went back home to Chicago and they called me the very next day and said, hey, we got a contract on our house. We're supposed to close on it in May. I was like, okay, but if that doesn't happen, we'll still do the rent to own for a year. They were like, yeah, no problem. We're definitely going to close in May. And I was like, okay. So they ended up selling that house in Chicago the 1st of May, and they started moving stuff into this house, okay? So they started moving out of their house in Chicago, and they had all of April and May to move into my house in Dandridge, and they did. The first thing they moved in was a bunch of kayaks. They had 2 kayaks that they wanted to bring down from Chicago and go kayaking every day in the lake, and they didn't want to miss a day of it. So they rented the house for 2 months before they could buy it for $135. And May 13th, we closed. I went to the seller's office. My attorney has a title company, and he had a title rep come to my seller's office. They owned a lawnmower repair company. And they couldn't go to closing. They couldn't leave the office because they were small business owners. So we had the title work and everything done in their office at the lawnmower shop. And I got a check for a little over $13,000, okay, because I'd agreed to buy the house for $122, and my Chicago people had agreed to buy it for $135. I'd gotten 2 months worth of rent of $1,000 a month, even though I didn't have any payments going out. And the difference between $122 and $135 is $13,000. So in my very first deal, I made $15,000, like right at 8 weeks after leaving a boot camp. 2 weeks in, my first appointment with my mentor was the first Monday of March. I already had this house under contract before I met with the Ionatis. Now, my mentors were awesome to help me, negotiate, to help me talk, and then I did 14 deals that year. So they were with me for all the other deals. But I got that first one under contract and made $15,000 like that. In real estate time, to start making $2,000 and then get a check for $15,000 and not use my license, not use the MLS, that is fast, y'all. That is super fast. 3 weeks after that closing in May, I got another check for $8,000 on another house that I'd bought on St. Patrick's Day. I actually bought 2 houses on St. Patrick's Day, but one of them closed out like the first week of June, 3 weeks after that. So I had all of my mentoring money back, all of my money in Ron back. In my first 2 deals, I made $23,000 in 12 weeks doing lease options on 2 little deals. And then I went on to do 12 more deals that year. I made 15, I made 8, I made 5, I made 8, I made 20, I made 7. I made money on all of those deals. I had one deal where I made $3,000. That's all I could do. That's all I could get. And I did it. And because I did it, and I've been through it, and I was a one-woman show, I know you can do it. I know you can get out there and talk to sellers. I know you can start making offers, because I had to kind of figure it out as I went. And you're going to have to figure out some things as you go. Absolutely. I'm not going to lie and tell you that it's, just going to be magic and you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. There's going to be some things that you got to learn about your market, about your sellers. But for the most part, what I've given you in First Deal Done Fast, I gave you the contracts. I've given you the contracts. I've given you the negotiating powers that I use. I gave you my strategy to make 3 offers every time you look at a house. If you're an agent, you make 4 offers every time you go see a house. I've given you everything that I actually use every single day to buy houses. And I've given it to you in First Deal Done Fast, and I'm giving you a Facebook group so that you can ask questions, so that you will have me. Maybe not one-on-one, maybe not on a call every week, maybe not on a VIP day, maybe not even in person, but so that you do have somebody that will be there to answer your questions. When I was with my mentor, I got an hour with them every week and 1 email in between. 1 hour a week and 1 email every week. And that was it. That's all I got. There weren't any backup videos. There wasn't a group. There wasn't any kind of interaction. There wasn't any kind of, I'm up at midnight studying, or I'm going to talk to a seller. What do I need to say? There was none of that. There was 1 hour a week and 1 email a week. And that's all I got. And I don't want anybody else to have to live by those restrictions. Janine's right. That ain't enough at all. 1 hour a week, 1 email a week. So I don't do that. I want to be as open and as honest and as accessible as I can be, because that's what we do in this group. Whether you're in the Rockstar group or whether you're in the First Deal Done Fast group, I try to answer your questions. I try within an hour to answer your questions. Now, if you hit me up at like midnight, it's definitely going to be 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning before I get back to you. But if if it's during normal working hours, my goal is to answer you, whether it's just encouragement or whether it is like a really good in-depth thought. Or if it is to, go watch that video, I talk about it there. Or you just haven't gotten to that part of the course, skip on to number 3. I try to be there so that you could get past whatever it is that's blocking you right now and keep going. Because 1 hour a week and 1 email a week is not enough. It's not enough. You got questions, and I want to be there to answer them for you. And that's what we give you. And if I can't get to it, Jason will answer the questions in the group. When I was mentoring with the I-Naughties, I had John and Stephanie. I had John for an hour on the phone every week, and I had Stephanie in an email every week if I needed something. And so that's what Jason and I are trying to do here, is we're trying to be a team. I talk to sellers different than he talks to sellers. Maybe it's a woman thing, maybe it's a man thing, but this way you get both perspectives. And that's one of the reasons that I think the First Deal Done Fast group, the Rockstar group, I think it's absolutely amazing, because we do want to help you. We really want you to get your first deal done fast. I got my first 2 deals done within 12 weeks. I had $23,000 in 12 weeks from getting started. I completed 14 deals, made like $150,000 from November, when I went to that first lease option class with Bruce and Victor, to the next November. I cleared like $150,000 in 14 deals. That's fast, y'all. That is super fast. And no, the I-Naughties don't travel with Ron LeGrand. No. They're not even mentoring with him anymore. That's super fast. And I want everybody that comes through First Deal Done Fast to be my next success student. I want you out there making offers, making deals, and getting them done. Come back into the group and let's celebrate it. If you have a milestone, if you've got your first seller appointment and you're going out and you know that you're going to be talking to sellers, or you are sending your first batch of yellow letters, like, let's celebrate that, because that's getting you every single day, every single week, getting you one step closer to closing your first deal. That's what the group's for. And that's what we do in the group. We celebrate milestones. We celebrate the fire out of wins. Abby, quit digging. Dang it, now I got dirty paws to go clean. Look at this. We celebrate the milestones. We celebrate the wins. We celebrate the no's. We, honest to goodness, when a seller tells me no, all right, fine. Because, you know, Babe Ruth said that he always thought he celebrated his strikeouts. Not like, woohoo, I struck out, but like he knew statistically that every time he struck out, he was that much closer to at bat. I mean, he was that much closer to getting a home run every time he went up to bat. Okay? So every time you go out to talk to a seller, whether you get a yes or a no, fine. If you need to hear 8 no's for every yes, then let's go get 8 no's. Let's go do it. Whatever it's going to take. If it's going to take 5 no's to every yes, let's go do it. Let's get the no's and let's celebrate them. Let's get them done. Absolutely. You cannot give up. There's no quitting in this group. There's no quitting in real estate, because when you quit, you're telling your sellers that you can't help them. And you can. You can help all of these sellers. It's going to help you also, but it's really going to help your sellers. This dog is laying down in the rain. She's not even smart enough to get in out of the rain. Abby, it's raining. Come here. Silly dog. All right. So that's my story of my first deal. And that's my story of, you know, when I say that, you know, I went to my first boot camp and Jason told me I had church camp mentality, and I say it was rough. It was also rough because it was within a month of when I thought he was going to propose to me, and he didn't. And then he told me I had church camp mentality, and he told me I couldn't do this, and he basically told me I was a loser. That's how I took it. Of course, he doesn't see it that way. And I'll tell you another thing. Don't open that door. She's got dirty paws. I'll tell you another thing is, in October of 14, I needed a break. I was wore out, okay? I'd been doing all these deals. I'd been proving him wrong left and right, and I was ready. I needed a break. I wanted to go to Biltmore for the weekend. I wanted to have a little nice romantic getaway in October, and I had an open house. I was going to do an open house on a Saturday morning, and then we were going to go to Biltmore, and again, I thought, this would be awesome. We're going to have this romantic getaway. Maybe he'll propose this time. He didn't propose that time either. We went to Krispy Kreme to get donuts and broke up in the parking lot. And I told him that day, and I'll never forget it, I was on my way to open house, going on to Biltmore. I'd got this romantic weekend planned with my honey, thinking he's going to propose. And I told him in the drive-through at Krispy Kreme that he was either going to have to start liking real estate and start supporting me, because I'd done like 12 deals. I did another one in October, another one in November to complete my 14 and 14. He was going to have to get on board and do real estate with me. And I even told him, it's not that I gave him an ultimatum, but I basically told him he was going to have to start liking real estate or leave me alone, because I'd found it and I was onto something and I was going to do it for the rest of my life. And y'all know, we also got in a fight because I thought he was going to be proposing and he hadn't even started looking at rings yet. So men, they just don't get it sometimes, right? They just aren't paying attention. But anyway, I broke up with him in the Krispy Kreme. I went and did my open house, and I called Mom and told her that we were going to Biltmore, and Mom and I went to Biltmore, and I cried all weekend long. And I sent him back to Georgia. So when it took a couple weeks, but we got back together, right? And he agreed to go to the next available Ron LeGrand boot camp with me. And he started paying more attention. He started going on my calls. He started answering calls for me. He started helping me. He started supporting me. And the other biggest thing was he started to know my vocabulary. You know, I was talking about all this great stuff, and until this point, he still didn't get it. He still didn't understand it. He was a little bit better, but y'all, he wasn't on board yet. And it wasn't until I, basically told him it was real estate or get away from me. So he chose real estate so he could stay with me. And, now we're both doing real estate all the time and helping other people. So honestly, guys, if you have somebody in your life that is not exactly supportive of this adventure you're on, I have totally been there. All right. I've been on seller appointments and they said, "How old are you? Is your dad going to come sign this paperwork for you?" What do you mean, is my dad going to come sign this paperwork for me? No, dad isn't coming to sign this paperwork. Or I've been in the seller's kitchen and they said, "So when's your husband going to get here so we can do the negotiating?" Y'all know this is 2014. This is 2015, right? Like, I don't need my husband to negotiate for me. All right. Y'all know just a couple weeks ago in 2017, I had somebody pop in and they were like, "Yeah, I'll totally owner finance this house to you as long as your mom co-signs it with you." I'm 32. I have 19 houses right now. I don't need my mom to co-sign on your house. All right. Like, what gets on my nerves sometimes, and you can tell this is going to get on my nerves. There's a lot of gurus and coaches out there that are going to show you $1 million check, and they're going to tell you they had 3 hours involved in it, right? And that it was all unicorns and rainbows. There was no problem. Nobody had any questions. It was all good. Yeah, they've been doing this for 20 years, but it's all good. Those guys drive me crazy. They drive me crazy, one, because it doesn't have to take 20 years to get really good at real estate. And you don't have to make $1 million to feel successful in real estate. You also, Abby, come here. Get out of the mud. What is wrong with you? You also don't have to have a Lamborghini to be a real estate investor. You see that over there? That's my Hyundai. I drive a Hyundai, and I freaking love my Hyundai. That's my second Hyundai, and I freaking love it. It's out in the rain, all right? Like, I don't flash big checks. I will tell you that I bought a house with no money. I will tell you that I'm making an extra $300 a month. Oh, I bought another one. Now I'm making another $300, another $500, another whatever. But the thing about the real gurus is they don't ever tell you about the struggle and the bad times. And maybe they didn't cry in the kitchen floor. Maybe I'm the only one that cries in the kitchen floor when I get told no. I don't know. Maybe. But I want you to know that it's totally possible. And if a little redneck like me can go out and buy houses, some of y'all fancy folks out there, you're going to have no trouble going out and buying houses. All right? I have an incredible amount of persistence that helped me become successful. I have a lot of determination. I have a lot of people, not to prove wrong, but to prove that I can do this, buying houses. And a lot of my students feel the same way. They've been through some bumps. They may or may not have somebody that says, "It ain't gonna work. You can't do this. You need to just stay where you are and give it up." I've been there. I've lived through it. I will be there with you to help you get through it when it happens to you too. I will be there in the group. Oh, now Jason's watching. I will be there with you in the group. Jason will be there with you in the group. We are here to really help you and really support you. What moment did I feel like I made it? I think it was in the lawnmower office at that first closing, because you know, when I got the contract signed, I was like, all right, this is cool. This is cool. And then it was still going, and I was like, I think this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. And then when it actually did happen, and I got that $13,000 and I could take it to the bank and deposit it, that's when it became real to me, because I had a shut up check. I could tell everybody to shut up and leave me alone. This is going to work. I can actually do this. I did this. And now I'm just going to go repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Absolutely. I think that is when I decided I made it. Another moment I decided I made it is until October of 2014. I'm going to spill all the beans here. Y'all ready for this? Jason and I broke up on a Saturday. I went to Biltmore, cried with Mom, came home on Sunday. I'd had that open house, and the people that came to that open house that Saturday morning ended up buying that house from me. And I looked a wreck. It was a disaster. I mean, I was crying and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was awful. Absolutely awful. But they took the house, so that was good. Went on to Biltmore, came back home. I had a house in Gatlinburg at the same time. And the guy that I was dealing with on the house in Gatlinburg, I signed the contract with him within the next week or two. While Jason and I were broken up, I sold the Gatlinburg house also. And that guy's name was Steve. And when I was selling him the house, because at this point I'd been assigning everything. I hadn't stayed in the middle of any of these deals, okay? I would go out and set up a lease option, and then I would go find a tenant buyer, and the tenant buyer would give me $10,000, $15,000, $8,000, $5,000, and they would take over my lease option, and I would just step back out of the way. Okay, I would get a lease option set up, and then I would assign it over to a tenant buyer, and the buyer and the seller had to, figure out the monthly payments and all this other stuff. Well, I was sitting there with Steve, and Steve and I kind of became friends, and he said to me, he was a business owner, and that was why he couldn't get a mortgage. It was because he was a small business owner. He said to me, he was like, you know what, Whitney? I don't understand why you are getting out of the middle of this deal. I don't understand why you don't, take my payment every month and then pay the seller. He said, I'm paying $1,500 a month for this house. And I've done the calculations on it. He said, I bet this seller's payment is not $1,500 a month. I bet you could make some money every single month off of me, and I'd be okay with that because I'm going to pay $1,500 whether it's to you or to the seller. He said, I'd be okay with that. So why are you getting out of the middle of this deal? And I was like, you're right. Her payment is not even $1,100. So I was giving her an extra $450 a month because I got $8,000. He was giving me $8,000 up front to get out of the way. But I missed out on $400, $400 plus some a month because I got out of the way. All she wanted was somebody to make that nearly $1,100 a month payment. I could have agreed to make that payment and collected $1,500 from him, and still got the $8,000, and still created $400 a month. And that was the moment that I decided to do the sandwich lease options. Sandwich lease options with Whitney. It's slow. So I remember that moment very clearly, and that is the moment I stopped doing assignments. Most of my first 14 deals were assignments. I didn't keep most of those those 12, 14 deals, 2 of them were mine that I turned into lease options. But if I had stayed in the middle and done a sandwich lease option, a slow, I would have 12 more houses right now. I'd have 31 houses right now. But I didn't. I got out of the middle, I got my money, and I moved on. So that I teach that too. I teach when and why and how to stay in the middle and to have your eyes wide open and make sure that you are getting as much money as you possibly can. I hate to think about the money that I gave away. I mean, I probably gave $3,000 a month or more away. I gave it back to my sellers. I could have made another $3,000 a month if I'd stayed in on all those other 12 deals. But I didn't know any better then. But I definitely remember sitting in the back warehouse, signing the lease option contract, getting an assignment, him giving me the check, and thinking I was done with this. And he was like, I'm looking at this from a business perspective, Whitney, and you're missing out on money. And when he told me that, that's when I had another light bulb go off. And he might have been my 11th or 12th deal. All right, so yeah, it took Jason a couple deals before he realized I had anything going on. It still took me a couple deals before I could figure out how to make more money. And I even had a mentor. So that's why I like to look, especially my one-on-one students, I analyze the fire out of their deals so that I can make sure they're getting every little penny possible out of this deal. All right, and that's why I've got tons and tons and tons of videos talking about, how do we make sure this is a win-win-win? How do we make sure that the seller's winning? How do we make sure that the buyer's winning? How do we make sure that we're winning? Which one's better for us? Which one's better for the seller? Which one? I mean, I've got all these videos and worksheets on stuff just to make sure that you can start to analyze the properties yourself. And, send them to me. Let me know. Let me look at it. Let me see what the deal is. Let me see if we can squeeze another 100, another 200, another whatever out of it. Because just because I missed out on money, it doesn't make sense for you to miss out on money. I hear people say this all the time, learn from my mistakes so that you can do better. So that you can get out there and make more money and don't make the mistakes I did. I already paid for those mistakes. I already paid the $20,000 for mentoring, $15,000 for mentoring, $3,000 for the boot camp, and then $2,000 for travel and food and lodging and beer. Abby, come here. Get out of the rain and out of the mud. God, freaking dog. Come on. So, Fabi asked when I knew I was successful and if I had any other moments. Those were my moments. And everybody is going to have those moments. Like the first time you get a seller to sign that contract, you're like, holy crap, this is going to happen. The first time that you get a tenant buyer calling you, offering you $10,000, $15,000, $40,000, you're like, holy crap, this is happening. The first time, or the 8th time, that somebody puts in an application on the same house and we got 8 people lined up to buy the house, you're thinking, holy crap, I got to go buy some more houses. All of those moments are beautiful and they give me chills to think about it. I've never had 8 applications on one house. I've had 3 applications on one house before, but never 8. That was a little bit of an exaggeration. But that's the deal. And yes, all of this is in First Deal Done Fast. The videos are in First Deal Done Fast. In most of the videos, I actually have my hair done and makeup on, and I look like a person instead of like a bum today. But today was a little bit of a stressful day for me, and this is all you got. But I had a point to all these stories, and now we've gone on to like 18 different stories of how I got started and breaking up with Jason and making money and all that stuff. Anyway, I guess to summarize it, you can do this. If I can do this and go through everything that I went through to learn how to do this, to help you, to get you boosted and going faster and better and stronger, you can totally do this. I believe in you. Thank you, Laura. I believe in you. Jason believes in you. And we're here to cheer you on. We're here to cheer you on because there's sellers out there that need you. Whether you believe this or not, there's sellers out there in your market or wherever you go on vacation, and they need you right now. And they're kind of hard to find, but once I teach you how to find them and it clicks in your head that, oh, that's what she meant when she said that 15,000 times. Yes, that's what I meant. And when you start talking to them, and then you go from making, 100 calls in 2 or 3 weeks to making 3 or 4 calls and buying 3 or 4 houses, and you're like, oh my gosh, everything she said, it made so much sense. Why did it take me 3 weeks for it to click? At least it only took you 3 weeks. It took me like 6 months. All right? But it took me 6 months so that you can go out there and get it done fast. And y'all got time for one more story? I mentioned crying in the kitchen. And what happened was I was going out and I'd gotten that house on February 28th. I got 2 houses on St. Patrick's Day. I got another house towards the end of March. And I mean, I was on a roll. Like, I was helping people left and right. And I was like on this real big high. And I was really excited and everything was awesome. And then I found a seller that was a teensy bit difficult. He was a preacher. Very nice man. I was driving for dollars, looking for FSBO signs, and he was mowing the yard. And I stopped. I had my button on, and I was real proud of myself, and I had my contract in the car. And I stopped the car, and I got out, and I talked to him, and I said, hey, do you know who owns this house? And he was like, I do. And I was like, oh, great. I see you've got a for sale by owner sign. I'd love to buy it. Can we talk about it? And he was like, what's that button say? I said, it says I buy houses. Because I buy houses. See, my shirt now says Whitney buys houses. And he was like, all right, yeah. So he took me through the house, showed me the house. Everything was good. And I made him 3 offers. And he just flipped it, so he didn't want my cash offer. And he didn't want a long 10-year lease option offer. So he went for the 5-year. I said, awesome, sounds great, sign here. And he said, okay, but I'm going to have to take it home and get my wife to sign off on it too. And I said, oh, yeah, totally. Definitely got to have your wife sign off on it, no problem. I said, but if you'll, go ahead and sign your side of it, then we can, you can send me hers when it gets signed, tomorrow or whatever. I'll go ahead and put my sign in the yard. I'll take some pictures. I'll start, marketing it. I was so excited. And he was like, all right. So he signed. I did everything. My girlfriend, Katie Marina, her birthday was that night, and her birthday, Jason's birthday is the 27th. I think her birthday is the 25th of March. So we went to Sips and Strokes, the painting class. It's funny. I can't hardly remember anything, but I can very vividly remember certain changing moments in my life, right? I remember Krispy Kreme. I can remember the Sips and Strokes. It's always about food with me. Y'all notice that? Okay, so I was at Sips and Strokes with Katie, and I was really excited, and I got in the car, and I missed a call, and it was from this guy. It was like 9 or 9:30, so I didn't call him back. He left me a voicemail, and I waited until I got home to listen to the voicemail because I was just so excited, and I just knew he was calling to say, yeah, we'll meet you in the morning, or, whatever. I got home, I listened to the voicemail, and it was him on the phone saying, my wife says that we can't do this. She's not going to sign the contract. We need to get I don't remember what he called it, but we need to cancel the contract, and we're not going to do the deal. And I was so hurt. I was so hurt because this guy had signed my contract. He'd given me his word. He was a preacher. I felt like he'd lied to me. But the other side of this is that I was killing it. I was out there. I was getting these contracts. I was on such a high. I was doing so good. And at the birthday party, at Katie's party, I told Katie and Virginia how much I was going to make on this deal and that I was going to be rich and that it was going to be fabulous and, all this stuff. And I'd counted my chickens before the eggs had hatched. Anybody else ever done that? Yeah, I did that. So since I'd had a glass at Sips and Strokes, and I'd waited to get home, and I was really excited, and then I hit the ground, my emotions were on a little bit higher of a roller coaster than normal, and I busted out crying in the kitchen floor. I mean, ugly crying too, like sobbing, like snot, like, like total over the top, ugly crying, all alone, not even like making a show of it for anybody, all alone. And it was because of my pride. That's what it boiled down to. My pride had been hurt. I was out, I was helping on these sellers. I was so excited because I was going to be able to help this preacher and his wife. I was going to, I was giving them top asking price. They weren't going to have to worry about anything else, and I was going to make a whole bunch of money, and everything was just going to be amazing. And then boom, I felt like he pulled the rug out from under me, dropped the ball on me. And before I really get to finish that, I needed both of their signatures before I had a fully executed contract. So I could send a cancellation. I just sent a letter that said, never mind, forget it. But the contract I had wasn't really good anyway because both of them hadn't signed it. So you live and you learn. But I called Jason that night because this was in March, like day before his birthday or day after his birthday. I can't really remember right now. And I'm boo-hooing, and he thought I'd like wrecked or something because he was living in Georgia and I was living in Knoxville. But he thought I'd wrecked and like something was wrong, or like Daddy had something happen, or like Tyler, or like he thought the dogs had gotten hit. Like he thought something was wrong the way I was crying and carrying on. Oh no, just a seller decided they didn't want to sell me their house. But I'm here to tell you that you're going to have those nights. You're going to get on a good roll. You're going to be helping people left and right. You're going to be getting contracts. You're going to be counting your checks before you even start advertising the house. And then something's going to snap probably in your brain. And maybe guys don't do this. I don't know. But women, sometimes things snap in our brain and it comes out through our eyeballs and then it goes back in through the chocolate. And that's how we process, or that's how I process. I don't know. It snaps in here, comes out here, and goes back in as chocolate. That's how I deal with stuff. So maybe y'all don't. I don't know. But that is the full crying in the kitchen floor, and that was also a pivoting night because I was emotionally involved in this house. I'd fallen in love with this house. This house was going to make me so much money, and I looked at it as like, I was just emotional about it. And that's why I teach. I don't buy homes. I don't sell homes. It's houses. It's sticks and bricks. And that night, that crying in the kitchen floor night, I had to have a good, honest talk with myself and say, hey, look, people are going to sign the contract and then they're going to back out. And you cannot get this upset about it when it happens. You've got to put your big girl panties on, deal with it, go find another seller. Something probably would have happened throughout that process that would have been a disaster, and you may have never made those people happy. So, if you have a crying in the kitchen floor night, I've been there. You are welcome to come into First Deal Done Fast group or the Rockstar group and say, hey, just want to check in, be honest with everybody, cried in the kitchen floor tonight. And Jason's live in First Deal Done Fast. What's he talking about? I can't ever tell what the man's doing. Anyway, that guy broke my heart, but that was another moment where things had to change. And I could not get emotionally involved with these people or with these houses. And I'll tell you that house that I bought from the preacher, oh, he's talking about the business card template? Okay, good. That house that I bought with the preacher, that I cried in the kitchen floor, I'm a little bit stubborn, I'm a little bit hard-headed, and I drove by that house like every week for the next 2 or 3 months, and then I drive by it every month, and it got listed by an agent and it didn't sell. And when I drove by actually the last time I drove by, it was listed by a different agent and it still hadn't sold. So, I could have bought it, already had them cashed out by now, definitely had a monthly income coming in, but this was March of 2014. They still have it. It's still empty. They haven't made a penny on it. So take that, sucker. It's cool. It happens. And no, I've never gone back to see if they wanted to deal with me now. You make me cry once, you're done. Yeah, the first offer is the best offer. My offer was the best they were going to get. They didn't take it, so fine. Keep it. I don't care what you do with it. But, you know, don't make me cry, or I will not be a happy person with you. So no, I never went back. I learned my lesson on that house, and I haven't ever gone back. All right, so I've been jibber-jabbering for a while. First Deal Done Fast is closing tonight at midnight, and no, they didn't call me. I guess they thought I was crazy. Whatever. First Deal Done Fast closes at midnight. Go to whitneyknoxley.com/go, and that'll get you into the course so you can watch the videos, you can get the worksheets. I am still working on the workbook. I'm still working on it. I promise I'll have it done this weekend, and it'll get you where you need to be. Everything that I've learned is in First Deal Done Fast, and if it's not in there, then you get the student group so you can say, hey, how about this? And I'll say, great question, let me answer it as soon as I have my first cup of coffee. If anybody has any questions, though, please let me know. Post it up in the group. Send me a message. You can send me an email if you want to, you know, whatever it is. And I'm not fluffing when I say that we're closing it tonight. We are closing it tonight. And I pretty much clock out at 9. So if you're going to have some questions or you want to run something by me, you need to do it before 9 Eastern time tonight. But the whole website, Brian's got it set up so that it shuts down. Not the whole website. The sales page shuts down at midnight Eastern. First Deal Done Fast. My first deal I did in 12 weeks. I made $15,000. 3 weeks later, my second deal, I made another $8,000. So in 12 weeks, I made $23,000 doing what I'm going to teach you in First Deal Done Fast for only $9.97. Quite the deal, if I do say so myself. All right, y'all have any questions, let me know. It was nice talking to you this afternoon. Been kind of stressed. This feels kind of good to just get in here and chit-chat a little bit. So, y'all let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be around. I'll see you in First Deal Done Fast. Bye, y'all.